The night around Max's house was anything but peaceful. Darkness had settled like a heavy blanket, suffocating the landscape in an eerie stillness. One night, as Max drifted off to sleep, his body relaxed under the warmth of his blankets. But soon, his dreams took him to a familiar, frightening place. In the dream, he found himself standing alone in a vast, endless darkness. There was no one around him, only an overwhelming sense of loneliness. The air was cold, and the silence pressed down on him like a weight, making him feel small and helpless. Though he was asleep, the fear felt real. He was trapped in the middle of the darkness, a prisoner to his fear. The loneliness in the dream was crushing, as if he were the last person in the world with no hope of escape or comfort. Suddenly, in the midst of the quiet darkness, Max heard a sound that made his heart skip, and he opened his eyes. It wasn't the growl or roar he had always feared might come from the shadows, but something different, gentle and quiet, like a soft, sad whimper. With trembling hands, Max quickly switched on the light. His heart still pounded in his chest, but the light eased some of his fear. He couldn't ignore the strange, sad sound. Stirred by curiosity, Max pushed back the covers and slid out of bed. Leaning cautiously over the edge of his bed, he fully expected to find only the empty floor beneath him. But to his shock, two glowing green eyes blinked up at him. His breath caught, and for a moment, he froze. The creature that emerged wasn't anything like the terrifying monsters he had imagined. About the size of a large cat, it had shaggy blue fur, floppy ears, and soft paws. Its large eyes, filled with worry rather than malice, glowed faintly in the dim room. The creature's name was Mook, and it wasn't like the other monsters. While the others took pleasure in scaring humans, Mook had no such desire. In fact, it was lost, far from home, stranded in a world where it didn't belong. The other monsters didn't like Mook. They considered him too different, too gentle. As Mook shared its story, Max's fear faded. He had always imagined monsters as terrifying creatures, but Mook wasn't frightening at all. In fact, Max felt sorry for the little creature. Mook didn't want to scare anyone. All it wanted was to find its way home. Max told, "Don't worry, Mook, I will help you to find your home." Hearing this, Mook was so happy that it jumped for joy. Beneath his bed, Mook explained, there was a hidden tunnel, a passageway to the underground world where the monsters lived. But it was dangerous, filled with creatures far scarier than Mook, and they would have to navigate it carefully. Together, they ventured underground. The space beneath, once cramped and dusty, transformed into a long, winding tunnel. The air was thick and smelled of damp earth. Strange noises echoed around them, whispers and growls, things moving just beyond sight. Hulking figures loomed in the shadows, their eyes glowing with malice. Some were small, but fast and sneaky, their sharp teeth visible in the dim light, attacking from all angles. Some of the monsters were massive, their jagged claws scraping against the stone walls, creating a piercing screech that echoed around them. Others were small but quick, darting in and out of the darkness, their sharp teeth flashing as they hissed and snarled, making Max's heart race. Max could feel the panic rising within him, feeding the monster's strength. But then, with Mook's encouragement, he remembered. The monsters thrived on fear. Summoning all his courage, Max straightened his back and stood tall. "I'm not afraid of you," he shouted, his voice steady and confident. Suddenly, the whole tunnel transformed before his eyes. Glowing mushrooms lined the paths, rivers shimmered in the darkness, and the air was filled with a soft, enchanting hum. They had reached Mook's home, a beautiful, peaceful place, filled with warmth and comfort, far from the dangers of the tunnel. Mook's eyes sparkled as they arrived, grateful to be back where it belonged. As Max and Mook stood at the edge of the glowing underground world, Mook looked up at Max with teary eyes.
Thank you, Max. You helped me when no one else would, and you'll always be mine. Goodbye, Max.
Max smiled. I'll miss you, Mook. You'll always be my friend, he replied. Mook nodded, wiping away a tear. Max returned through the tunnel, this time without fear. The monsters were gone, vanquished not by force, but by his newfound confidence. As Max neared the end of the tunnel, a familiar voice called out, "Max! Max!" It was his mother. Suddenly, Max awoke, unsure whether the adventure had been real or just a vivid dream. But one thing he knew for certain: fear no longer controlled him. Max knew, deep down, that sometimes even in the scariest places, friends could be found. All it took was a little courage and kindness to uncover the truth behind the things that once seemed so terrifying. This story emphasizes the power of compassion, bravery, and self-belief, showing that sometimes the scariest things in life are simply waiting to be understood, and maybe even befriended.